before we do, if you're taking any photos or videos today, please ensure you're tagging the ATN Podcast too. So, let's get straight over there. First and foremost, Greg, what was your initial reaction to when you seen the stadium images yesterday?
Well, it was my initial reaction. It was absolutely amazing. I thought it was a tall order to try and deliver probably the hopes and dreams of however many hundreds of thousands of Evertonians here and around the world, and encapsulate that into one vision, because that's all it is at the moment. But what a vision it is. And I actually feared in some ways, maybe it's the pessimism in me, but I was fearing the worst. Would it be like one of these stadiums where a spaceship looks like it's landed on the banks of the Mersey? But I think we'd all agree that what he's done is nothing short of incredible. He's the brief he was given in terms of hopefully retaining the best parts of Goodison. That seems like it's all ticked from the images, from the flyby. But just for an iconic, really global stadium, it took my breath away. I think we were at the Titanic yesterday when it was unveiled, and he rightly got a standing ovation, and it almost sounds melodramatic, almost a lump in the throat when that video had finished and everyone stood up. It was a special moment.
David, what was your initial reaction when you seen the flybys we can see on the television to the left of us? It is stunning, isn't it?
It is, yeah. I was hoping to bring something new to the table in terms of the description of how fantastic it is, but I can't. It's, I mean, he's got it so right, hasn't he? The fact that you can find very few, I mean, I don't know many people who were disappointed with the design, I think says a lot. And you know, it's testament to him. Not only has he been the architect behind the stadium, but he's invested a lot into getting behind the club and, you know, the values that we believe in. He feels like he's a true Evertonian. And he's hit the nail on the head. I really like that he's built a stadium that almost blends in with the environment. It's not an eyesore. You know, with the brickwork within there, it looks like it's going to be a fantastic addition to the waterfront. So, yeah, fully deserved. And the great man must be being able to hear what I'm saying.
It's the man himself. Mr. Dan Meis, ladies and gentlemen, the architect of the Bramley Moore Pub. Your first time in this?
No. I've been here several times. Yeah, it's perfect, right? It just has the right character. It's going to be incredible once the building's here.
So, I've got to ask you straight away, from yesterday at the Titanic Hotel, how proud must you feel right now when you've seen 1,000 Evertonians give you a standing ovation because you more or less made their dreams come true?
You know, it's funny, proud is, I just feel really humbled. I do. It's, obviously for me, I feel very lucky to be doing this, and it's a labor of love. So, you know, to get this kind of outpouring, it's a lot embarrassing actually, but I really appreciate it, and you know, can't thank you guys enough.
Dan, you've had a lot of people talk about the brief that you've had, and you've had a strange briefing that you probably had one from the organisation that's employed you, and then one from about 600, 700, 800,000 people around the world, and a lot of people in Liverpool.
You know, it's a different client too. It was really great that from the very beginning this client was very aware of who they were as a club, and the idea that it didn't make sense to leave Goodison unless we were going to do it in a way that would satisfy what generations of people have loved. And so it was unique from the start, but I had no idea that, you know, I'd be able to get this kind of engagement with the people that, you know, particularly this early in the process. It's been fantastic.
What was the key principles that Everton asked you from the stadium?
I'm not going to remember all of them, but you know, it was definitely about cauldron of energy and steep stands right on the pitch, intimacy. You know, what was made clear to me, sort of less formally than a list, was, you know, we're not going to care about fancy things in the concourse and super flashy materials and things. This is about football. It's got to be a proper football pitch and a proper football experience, and that was completely clear from the very beginning.
How tough was it to keep within the World Heritage status with how you design the stadium?
For me, in some ways, it made the process a lot easier because What's really difficult is when I have a client who doesn't really know who they are. They just want me to create something for them on a site that I have all the land in the world and I can do anything. Then there's no reasoning to what I'm doing. Here, as soon as I saw this site and the area, the materials, places like this, you know, it kind of drives you to understand that you need to have something that references that heritage. So I think it's important for me to understand that we haven't done this because we had to. It's the right thing to do, and I was really interested in the idea very early on, for maybe a year and a half, about a building that felt like it grew out of the site, and yet still looked to the future.
Will be particularly excellent. They have their own reasons to be excited about the plans you've drawn up, but Tony and I have spoken about the Blue Wave, as you dubbed it, that immense new Gladys Street, if you like, bigger than the Cop, one of the biggest stands in itself, maybe akin to Dortmund's the Yellow Wall. It's really exciting. Is that something that you put a lot of effort into encapsulating a really intense event like that?
Yeah, I think it's really critical that, again, there's no reason to leave Goodison unless where we're going gives us a home pitch advantage. And again, I think that's something that gets lost in a lot of the new stadiums that we've seen, is that there's a lot of attention to making sure they're wide concourses, you have enough toilets and enough concessions and all the clubs and suites and lounges and things, but that home pitch advantage is ultimately such a critical element to the club doing better and recruiting the best players, keeping the best players. So it's been there from the beginning that was a key criteria, and everything we can do to put all you crazy people right on top of the goal, that's going to give us a better chance to be a better club.
Is there a part of the ground that is your favourite feature?
I don't know. Maybe it's like my kids. It's hard to choose. I love where we've gotten to in this idea that it does really relate to this. I mean, looking at like the Titanic Hotel and how that's been reimagined is so incredible. It's a great example of what you can do without trying to reinvent or come up with something totally different, but yet reimagine something with that kind of history. So, and it was funny. I don't know if you all heard the story, but the big image that you see of the building from the Riverwalk, that image just kind of came out of the process in the last few days. And we've been thinking about this for a year and a half, or even at that kind of where we are with the design has been subtly changing and growing. And seeing that image, it was instant to me that this feels right on this site.
What do you think of Everton fans though? You must have been bombarded with Everton fans over the past 18 months. How do you feel towards them right now?
Well, I mean, I've loved, there's been a lot of statements about it. I became an Evertonian, a few years ago. I mean, I started going to Goodison and really loved it. I understood this was a different kind of club, a different kind of fan base, and so, it's just, like I said at the beginning, it's just so hard to feel like I deserve this attention. And I know it's because you all love the club so much, and I appreciate that. But the toughest thing for me is I can honestly say I've never taken a selfie in my entire life. And now I've taken about 4 million of them in the past 3 days. So.
Dan, you're obviously a very experienced and accomplished architect. However, did you have a little flutter of nerves in your stomach yesterday before the official unveiling of the Titanic, when everyone was sat there and all of a sudden your baby, as you were saying, goes out into the world?
Definitely. I mean, I was really excited because, and I think because of this, I get called a doc tease and things like that. I've been trying to communicate it, trying to give you guys an idea about what I'm doing. But so it was. I knew it was going to be a relief to finally get it out and to be able to show it. But of course, there's always you don't know how everyone's going to react to it. You all have had an idea in your mind about what it could be, and I've been thinking about it day and night for a few years. So there's that nervousness that the worst thing that could have happened is the kind of and that's what I was afraid of. But wow, you proved me wrong on that.
I think you avoided that one.
Yeah.
I speak to thousands and thousands of Evertonians on social media outside the ground, and I've struggled in my lifetime to think of a time when every single Evertonian is happy with the end result. You must feel so proud of what you've done.
Yeah, I mean, I've read that on Twitter too, and that was one of the most powerful things that I read last night. And it's amazing. I feel proud to be a part of that. I mean, and you know, I probably haven't said this enough, that obviously it's not just me. Scott's back in here somewhere. I have an incredible team of people in New York and LA that have been obsessing over this as much as I have. The club's been incredible, and I know, you know, there's kind of a love-hate relationship with your club. That's a natural thing, and you never know, do they feel the same things you feel? But it's taken a lot of people to get to this point that we're thinking very hard about and cared very deeply that what we show is something we're going to deliver. So yeah, I feel lucky and proud and a small part of something that's, you know, obviously very impactful to all of us.
And that natural next question is, okay, let's see a spade go in the ground, let's see construction work begin, let's see the dock get drained, let's see it be delivered, because that's the really big challenge facing the club now, isn't it?
Right, it is, and I'll tell you, it was one of my biggest worries about not getting out sooner. In a lot of projects in my career, these are complex projects wherever you build. And this one's particularly complex because it's in a UNESCO World Heritage Site. It's on a difficult site to build on. You know, there are all kinds of things that make this particularly challenging. But most of the time in my career, I've been in a situation where we get the idea out there and you just try and get everybody behind it. You get enough momentum to get it through. Because of what I think our history here of having a couple of false starts and you know, obviously change in ownership, all those things have kind of contributed to getting to this point of making sure that we knew we could deliver this. What's really important to everybody here, everybody on Twitter, everybody you talk to, is that you are all now in the driver's seat. And well, the only thing that can stop this is lack of enthusiasm, you know, from the city and the fans, and in any way being laissez-faire about it. You have to support it. You have to fill out the survey. You have to talk to everybody. It's right for the city. It's right for this area. It's right for the club. And you now are in the driver's seat to help make that happen.
Can I ask your opinions on Goodison Park? What do you think of that?
It's one of the greatest places to, you know, see a football match anywhere. And I've seen sporting events all over the world, and there's nothing like it. I've been to a, you know, Super Bowl with 100,000 people. It doesn't touch, you know, a regular season game in Goodison in terms of the energy that you feel. So it's probably the biggest responsibility I feel, is that how do we do that? How do we bring that magic with us? And you know, I hope that it's clear in the drawings. We've tried really hard to make the seating bowl feel like Goodison. That you really just sense the pitch and the stands, and everything is very tight and right on top of it.
So how difficult was it to try and separate the two stadiums?
Well, I don't think it's too hard to separate it, and we were very clear that we weren't going to try and copy it. We weren't going to, and you know, as much as I love the Archie Leach history and the truss, and we didn't want to do a big blue truss and say, oh, this makes it like Goodison, because it is a different place. But I believe that buildings, they have souls, they have memories, and so you bring pieces of it, you bring memories of it, and you know, for us, putting the Archie Leach pattern into the brick was a nod to this was part of our history, but this is another way of doing it. And most of it, I had it with me. I had a photo today of the clock tower, or I mean the clock corner, and people on the roof, and you know, a lot of it wasn't about the architecture of Goodison. It was about this idea that the neighborhood spilled in and the game spilled out, and so it's thinking about that. How do we create those kind of moments? That's what will make it feel like Goodison, and it's going to be hard to leave, but I think that if we get the energy right, it'll grow its own history, its own memories, and you know, hopefully we'll have at least 130 years right over here.
There's also a lot of things out of your control now, and I think out of any of our control in terms of the economy. You only have to look at Tottenham Stadium, where that ended up escalating in price, and the price of steel even went up, I believe, from when it was designed to when it was completed. Obviously Brexit, we don't know how that will affect the economy. There are things that it's hard to really explain or touch on, but right, there are challenges ahead, aren't there?
Yeah, and I mean, you touched on Brexit, and a new prime minister. I mean, there are lots of things that are changing in the country right now, in the world right now. But it's true almost every time I've ever done a project. I mean, things come and go, but I guess on the positive side, you have a very committed club, a committed owner. This is right for the club, and I think they're committed to figure it out. I think the other thing you touched on, and this is another thing I'm worried about in the reveal that we don't talk a lot about. I mean, we're not spending £1 billion, on this project. It's not an open checkbook, and it shouldn't be. I wouldn't want any owner to feel like they don't know how much it's going to cost to do it. We're not expecting the big shiny, lots of concourses, lots of boxes, and that's where buildings get expensive as they get taller and wider and bigger and lots of stuff. And this is going to be a no-nonsense football ground, modern and all of the kind of amenities, but it's going to be efficient and tight and not extravagant. I said yesterday, I liken it to we're building a sports car, not a Bentley kind of thing. It really has to be a performance building.
How much input have you had from Farhad Moshiri and Bill Kenwright along the way?
A lot. Yeah, I mean, well, as you can imagine, I mean, it's his money, and the chairman, you all know again better than I do. I mean, he loves this club, and he loves everything about this. I mean, in large part, this is his vision. I mean, this is where it got started, and Mr. Moshiri coming into it recognizes the value and the importance of it to the future of the club. But again, no one goes into this and thinks of it as just a blank check. It's still a business, and in the end, it's a business that. And this is a really important thing to remember, that the money that goes into the stadium is money that can't go elsewhere to build the club. So you have to really balance it.
How important was it to get across to the Evertonians now that this isn't the final result of the stadium, isn't it? You still want feedback, you still want discrepancies of what they feel that there's still an input in there, isn't it?
Yeah, I think, well, the important thing is that obviously you've seen the kind of vision of where we want to take the design. There's a lot of detail in it that will still get worked through. I got comments about Everton on the window and the badge on the side. Those things are all just kind of placeholders for right now. The actual colors of the brick and how it's detailed. There's lots of things that will still get detailed. A lot of the interiors are still to be done. The second thing about the surveys and the input is, again, we need everybody. We need Liverpool City Council, we need World Heritage, we need Historic England to understand how important this is to the city. And so even if you love it and don't think we should change a thing, you should reinforce that. But don't be shy about criticism or ideas. It's all important.
Dan, is there anything on that point, is there anything that isn't up for adaptation or changes? Is there anything that you think, for me, that's something that's essential to the stadium? I just heard someone say there that's what I'm hitting now.
No, I wouldn't say, well, I guess the simple answer is we've spent a lot of time getting to where we are, so we're pretty comfortable in this sort of big idea. But I'm not precious about these things. I really want the input, and there are things that I feel very strongly about that I would protect if say we ran into a point where, well, we can't do that because of the budget, then we might look for somewhere else to change something so that we protect that. That's something that in my career I've always worked really hard, that the building that we build looks like the rendering that we put out, and I think we've been pretty good at that. And I hate nothing more than seeing big splashy renderings and then the building gets built and it's a whole different material. It doesn't look anything like the render of it. So that won't happen.
What do you feel when you actually see it? Well, you must be sick and tired of looking at it, to be honest with you.
No. It's you don't get tired of it. There's a kind of funny thing that there's a point that happens to me every time that you almost forget how we got there, and particularly when it's built and you're walking around in it and you're like, oh my God. And it's easy to forget that it may start with a little napkin, but it takes hundreds of people to design it. It takes thousands of people to build it. And billions of pounds to pay for it. So it's a massive undertaking. And, so that's, when I look at this, the great thing about these images for me is that it feels really real. I can see it sitting over here. I can tell how big it is, and I, just can't wait to see it.
How does this compare to the experience of, say, working on Rover's new stadium?
Well, your accent's just a little easier to get than the Roma one. But no, there's nothing like this. I was talking to my wife right before I came here, and she said, you'll probably have to retire because nothing will touch this, going forward. But Roma was amazing. Rome's an incredible city, and they're obviously very passionate fans too. And I had a lot of, obviously there was a little bit more of a language barrier. So there was some engagement, but the difference about Evertonians is that you are, despite what we were saying earlier about, sometimes there are some divisions, for the most part you all are very passionate in much the same way. About life, about your football club, about all that. And so that's one of the unique things about this. And then the ability to be able to interact with you while we're in this process, that's incredible.
And I'm right in thinking that went as far as getting some ink to recognise?
Oh yeah, I've had this for like a couple of years. I've had it 1878, so...
Have you been over to the site recently, to the Bramley Moore site?
It's been, a few months since I was there last, but...
When you go back home, what's your general feeling when obviously your friends and your family will ask you, like, what was obviously your general feedback, what was the atmosphere like, what are you going to tell them?
Oh, you mean about yesterday? Yeah, it's. And my wife thinks it's ridiculous, of course. Like, it's. it can't possibly be like I've described it. But, it is honestly indescribable. It's never happened to me in my career like this, and I think it's a lot to do with our all mutual passion, for what's happening. This is a once in a lifetime opportunity for all of us. So it's been just unbelievable.
Obviously, you've been in this pub before. Will you be joining us in the 3 or 4 years beforehand? You're very welcome for a pint for the first game of the season.
Oh, of course. Yeah, I can't wait for that. So I remember the first time I came in here and I thought, oh my God, this is such a perfect place to build a stadium across from. It reminds me a little of some of the pubs around, or bars around Wrigley Field in Chicago, and that kind of history of people go there before and after, and obviously that's an incredible part of the culture of football in the UK. But how convenient that it was already here.
Do you have a take on naming rights deals? Because is it difficult from an architect's point of view to, you wouldn't want your baby to end up with some horrendous name. USM Bramley Moore sounds about right to me, but yeah. Is it an issue for architects?
Yeah, well, it has been for me. It's part of the economics, obviously, and I one of the things I really care about here is that whoever we get, but I want to make sure we don't lose Bramley Moore. That's one of the things that's really unique to English football, again, that Stamford Bridge, Craven Cottage, those kind of real things should stay there somehow. And so it could be X stadium at Bramley Moore, but we should never lose Bramley Moore Docks.
Dan, we're incredibly proud of the designs that you've produced. We're really pleased that you're on board as architect and as a Blue. And thank you so much for coming tonight and answering questions and joining in part of our podcast.
Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Dan Meis.